Let's tango.
Let's tango. Let's do it. Take it away, Mr. Vincenz.
All right, let me hit mute all and do that business. Let's see, mute all and unmute Mark and unmute Larissa.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Mark, take it away.
Tonight we have Eddy Toussaint Tontongi, Aidan Rooney, Mary O'Donoghue, and Daniel Tobin as our features. We will kick off today with a poem from Larissa Schmeilo. Just to let you know, Larissa's new novel, Slybang, is out from Spiden Dival. Her first novel, Patient Women, from Blazevox. Her poetry collections are Medusa's Country, Special Characters, Unlikely Books, In Paran, Blazevox, the chapbook A Cure for Suicide, and the ebook Fib Sequence from Argotist. Her poetry albums are The No Net World and Exorcism, for which she won the New Century Best Spoken Word Album Award. Larissa's work has appeared in many anthologies, including Measure for Measure, an anthology of poetic meters from Penguin, Words for the Wedding from Penguin, and contemporary Russian poetry from Dalkey Archives Press. Larissa is the original English language translator of the futurist opera Victory of the Sun by Alexei Kushchenev, performed at the, I can never get that one right, performed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Garage Museum of Moscow, the Brooklyn Academy of Music and Theaters and Universities Worldwide. Larissa also edited the anthology 21st Century Russian Poetry, which came out with Big Bridge Press. And she has been a translator for the Eugene A. Nida Institute for Biblical Scholarship of the American Bible Society. You can find out more about Larissa on her website, www.larissaschmeilo.com.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Thank you so very much. I'm going to read a poem, surprisingly enough. It's called Scarcity. Listen, if you wait but don't want, if you want but don't take, if you take but don't use, if you use but don't care, if you care but not much, the petty demon comes. The petty demon says, not all of you are wanted, not everyone is needed. A few may be accepted, there's scarcity, you see. There are no loaves and fishes, not for the likes of you. A few baguettes for baby, some caviar for me. There's just enough to shit and sleep, but not enough for thee. The petty demon shrieks, time is money, sell short, eat to win, assume the position. In the world, in the angry material world, there are men who are not men, men whose imaginations never rise above the box and plane, whose imaginations squat upon the positions of power. If the petty demon bothers you, here's what you say. Tell him, I don't know about your lawyer's fees, your MDs, your CEOs, your deep freeze. I do know that the blind man is perfect, that there's more to life than irony and squealing like a stuck pig, that the truth is hard, but you can stand on it, that time isn't money or threat, but a gift. As you assume your position in the world, do not love men who are not men, whose imaginations never rise. Walk tall, walk with God, assume nothing, take a position. Thank you, guys. It's now my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Jonathan Penton. In 1998, Jonathan Penton founded unlikelystories.org. Since then, he has lent editorial and management assistance to a number of literary and artistic venues, such as Mad Hat and Big Bridge. He has organized many performances and performed himself in places like Arkansas, California, Chihuahua, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oregon, Texas, and Washington State and DC. His poetry books are Last Chap, Blood and Salsa and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods, Standards of Acidity, and the free e-chap from Argotis, which you can download from Argotis, called Backstories. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Jonathan.
Thank you, Larissa. So I'm not terribly prolific. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a poem that we published this week on unlikelystories.org. It's called Sleeping in the Lot by Roger Kamenetz, who wrote The Jew and the Lotus. Sleeping in the Lot. He was sleeping in the Wendy's lot. The cars had to veer around him to get their burgers, to get their fries, to get the ketchup in a thick plastic pouch, red ketchup with fine print of preservatives. He was in the way, asleep. A black man drunk, sleeping it off. God knows it wasn't his dreams they were interrogating. Was it sweet, that last one before they knocked at the window? Was it he in Hawaii, like he'd been once in another dream? Was he flying without wings with his daughter beside him before they roused him from whatever lousy joy with a baton at the window and with a show me your hands? And he didn't want to show. He was pissed off in advance that his life would end this way, between the oil stains on the cracked lot and the burger smell under the plastic freckles and red braids of Wendy. He didn't know why he would have to die, for not moving, for sleeping in a bright lot, why they would come at him with a stick of voltage, which he grabbed. With a sudden move, his hand grabbed it. He didn't. He had no will. They had taken that long ago. His legs ran off with him, and he got shot in the cloud of exhaust, in the gray unknowing, in the broken lot. They had to steer around him to get their meat in speckled buns and pouches of ketchup with preservatives. The crew wiped his blood in the morning. For Rayshard Brooks, 27, father of 4, killed for no reason in Atlanta, June 13th, 2020.
Thanks, Jonathan.
You, again, that was Sleeping in the Lot by Roger Kamenetz. Next up is Mark Vincennes. Mark Vincennes has published 14 books of poetry, including more recently Becoming the Sound of Bees, Leaning into the Infinite, The Syndicate of Water and Light, and Here Comes the Night Dust. Vincennes' novella set in ancient China, 3 Tao's of Tao, is forthcoming from Spike and Dival Press. Vincennes is also a prolific translator and has translated from the German, Romanian, and French. He has published 10 books of translations, most recently Unexpected Development by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz, and which was a finalist for the 2016 Cliff Becker Book Prize in Translation, His poems have been published in many journals, including The Nation, Plowshares, Los Angeles Review, World Literature Today, Raritan, and Plume. His work has received fellowships and grants from the Swiss Arts Council, the Literary Colloquium Berlin, the National Endowments for the Arts, and the Witter Bynner Foundation for Poetry. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. Mark?
Thank you, Jonathan. This poem actually comes from my most recent book to come out with Salmon Poetry, which is an Irish press. I thought that was appropriate for today, Aidan. It's called A Meditation on Kabir. And for those of you who don't know, Kabir was a 15th century Indian mystic poet and oft translated by Robert Bly. And this poem is after Robert Bly. So inside the body is a seed, and inside that seed is a body. And as the river gives herself to the ocean, so the ocean moves within you to awaken beauty. You too must have slept 1,000,000 years. Why not awaken this very dawn and bring your mind down to silence? Then open your eyes. The musk is in the deer, but the deer does not seek it. She wanders eagerly, sniffing for fresh grass. What else might you hear such a stirring? Where else might you hear such a stirring? From the breathing inside the breath? Now open the window toward the east and vanish deep into the air. Meet her with the whole length of your body and reach for that place right there. Thank you. So a little shout out for Jesse Lendini from Salmon Poetry for publishing that book. I don't know if she's watching. I hope she is. And now we move on to our features. But before I do that, I just want to mention on Monday, June 22nd at 5 p.m., Mad Hat Press is releasing the Harry Crosby selected poems. It will be quite an event. Charles Bernstein has put 2 little films together of images together with Harry Crosby's poetry. I have made a movie with filmmaker Jen Yong, a little slideshow of 6 minutes. Ruth Lepson will be reading Fanny Howe. Marjorie Perloff will be interviewing Ben Mazer. Jerome Rothenberg will be giving us his thoughts on Harry Crosby. Ron Silliman will be there reading some of Harry Crosby's poems, as will Sally Connolly and I. So also please check the chat feed for the Zoom link. And remember, Monday, 5 p.m., Harry Crosby is relaunched for the first time since 1931.
Yay.
And next up, we have Eddy Toussaint Tontongi. Eddy was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Eddy is a poet, critic, and essayist. He writes in Haitian, French, and English. The author and #39 published books include, I don't know if I can pronounce all these very well, but I'll try. Celle pour des hommes bifiés, Buki. Is that correct?
Yep, Buki.
La parole indentée, Mémoire babouquette, and essays in French. In the Beast's Alley Poems of Conscience from Trilingual Press in Cambridge. Poetica Agawe, essays, poems, and testimonials. A trilingual work also from Trilingual Press in Cambridge. Critique de la francophonie, Haitienne, French and Haitian editions from Paris in 2007. Quite a list. Eddy is active as an editor, media producer, health and cultural organizer, and advocate in the Boston area and internationally. He serves as editor-in-chief of the publishing house, the trilingual publishing house, Trilingual Press, and the trilingual politico-literary journal Tambu, which is online at www.tanbu.com. Welcome, Eddy. And also before I just want to mention that Eddy, toward the end, will do the Creole Haitian or Haitian Creole version of Aidan's poem, which will lead into Aidan. But I will read your bio at that time, Aidan. Please, Eddy.
Well, thank you, Mark. I say thank you to the co-presenters and to Aidan Rooney for inviting me. I'm going to read a poem I wrote actually in 2016, 4 years ago. It's dedicated to Kate Lamont Scott. He's a 43-year-old African-American man who was killed by Brentley Winson, a Black police officer in Charlotte, North Carolina, on September 23, 2016. Right in front of his wife, Gracia Scott. Eventually, the district attorney decided not to press charges against the officer who shot Scott. Today, I salute all the protesters in cities and towns at home and abroad, demanding justice and real change in response to the police killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, Rachel Brooks, etc., etc., and untold other victims of systemic racism. The poem is titled, I Heard Rakea's Voice. She's the voice of Kate Scott. Direct as an intonation imploring you not to kill without due process a husband in distress. Is the same old, my friend, I said to the bartender, and his friend concurred. The same old impunity of power, the same structure erected some 400 years ago, Jim Crow version 21st century. I heard her voice, imbued with prescient pain, telling you a human being was there with red blood and consciousness, loved by family and friends who will mourn the odious act that you were about to commit. I heard her voice, but yours was the hellish sound of death, the blindness that covered the horrors. Yours was the silence of injustice. I heard her voice, the agony of seeing the inevitable unfold like a horror movie, hearing the cry to listen to a voice other than that of your fear. Tell me how to explain that you no longer lynch the black man on a tree in the spotlight of the day and still ambush him nights and days and decades long and kill him like a roach. Tell me, how do you invoke ideals of civilization and rights, humans' aspiration to freedom, and yet set your police unrestrained like hunting dogs in search of prey? You like to call these bad apples, blemishing the sweet and good ones, but you let them run the show and kill with impunity, inflicting unnecessary pain. You allow sadistic impulses be elevated as normal as values. Well, when killing is deemed justified in wars or conquest and by the fact of power, he reverberates in the conqueror's own backyard and serenity. He penetrates his soul and the fiber of his brain and all figments of his imagination. Is the chain of Macabo's deeds from General Barry McCaffrey, who killed with sadistic fervor panicky retreating Iraqi troops adhering to a ceasefire call along the highway of death. Carnage that a young Timothy McVeigh witnessed as an active soldier, sullied in blood and mayhem. He penetrated his soul and haunted his emotion. The next thing we knew, he blew up with cavalier hubris and scornful indifference the Oklahoma City Federal Building, where 168 people lost their lives. The culture of killing permeates all our senses like symbiotic chemical elements in action. He invades our ego as fetish excitation and thrill. You kill in the streets, not your fear, but a father, a son, or a sister en route to their home endeavor. You killed regardless in the dark of the night or under the spotlight of our eyes and ears, a human being who had caused you no harm. The culture of killing mines your good old sense, manipulated as it is by the informativo industrial complex, oiled by wars and human sacrifice, and adds value to the stock market's boom and security on demand provided by Halliburton. A diabolic chain of hurt, exclusion, and eco-degradation joined in a vicious circle which only human action can undo and reverse to give place to a better world. Yes, I heard Rakia's voice, forceful direct, full of dignity, telling you to stop your massacre of Black men's lives and aspiration. Don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. Penton, he didn't do anything. Don't shoot him. Her voice intoned in the silence, interrupted by the fatal sound of the gun. He doesn't have a gun. He has a traumatic brain injury, she said. Don't shoot him, she implored. You killed because you're cold. Nourished by hatred of the other, was gesture or seen as a threat. You are so entrenched in yourself, in your shell, that you are ready to kill. Yes, I heard the voice of the wife and also that of the protesters. The voices of the brave men, women, brave men of Ferguson, Baltimore, Charlotte, Minneapolis, and all over the USA and the world, who are crying out loud, Black Lives Matter. Yes, Black Lives Matter. They are demanding justice to flourish and expand, to end and expand respect to all human beings and dignity. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be part of a presentation with you guys.
Thank you so much, Eddie. That was amazing. And now you're going to segue into the Haitian translation of Aidan's poem "Go There," I believe. Is that right?
We're supposed to do it in a duet, no?
Yeah, we're gonna do it now. In fact, it's the other way around. It's my translation of Tontongi's "Allez là." So Tontongi, you're going to start it off, right?
So you want me to start, and then you're going? Okay, all right. That's fine.
Yeah. Off you go.
Well, allez là, and this poem is in the book is the first English Haitian anthology of poems, edited by Jacques Hirschman. He's a great American poet living in San Francisco, and Paul Larac back in 2001. This is one of the poems. I think I have two poems in there, or one, I don't remember, in that anthology. Allez là, côté où est que où, ap menon pour le patouner, yon désert qui séché avec la peine, puis mal passé yon pot tambou. Allez là, même là ou découragé, même là ou fin tourner yon petit salé, dans yon festin grenègue.
Go there. Go there where you know yourself you should, before the sad sack of your heart withers tighter than the skin on a bowron. Go there even if you're ticked off at policy, even if you turn to salt at the Who's Who fundraiser feast.
Faut qu'on aille là, chef Remio, Axemio, côté moun kap soufri, pas de jam temps de bonjour. Côté pas de lumière pour clairer jour l'espoir. Allez là, pour qu'à bail chalet l'amour, pour faire que moun content dans la vie, pour défier l'injustice avec le mal. Il a fait pauvre malheureux sous la terre sibi, comme quoi il n'y a pas de bien droit, yo là. Allez là, ça fait bonheur, explonder la vie.
You have to go there, dear brothers, sisters, where nobody gives the destitute the time of day, where no light lights their day with hope. Go there, bring your zeal to bear on the happiness of other people. Fight and right the wrongs the world's poor endure, as if they'd no business being here at all, here where, with plenty, the splendor falls.
Faut qu'on aille là, rete là, vin joindre nous seulement pour un petit sourire bouchou. Faut que nous là, oh, c'est ma frère yo, ou des moun ka ensemble, sans aucune malfaisance, pour nous planter mailles, oranges, avec l'amitié, pour nous tous sur la terre qui besoin on aller mieux.
You have to go there, stay there, join us, if only with a soft smile on your mouth. Oh, my sisters, brothers, we're needed there to plant together without any more shenanigans, oranges and corn and friendship for all of us on earth who need relief.
Thank you.
Which we do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aidan. Let me quickly introduce you because you sort of segued in there, but which worked well. But anyway, Aidan is a native of Monaghan, Ireland, a resident in the US since 1987. His third and actually first US collection of poetry, Go There, which is titled, of course, by that poem that Aidan and Eddy just read, has been released from Mad Hat Press. Aidan lives in Hingham, Massachusetts, and has taught at Thayer Academy since 1987. He was awarded the Hennessy Literary Award for New Irish Poet in 1997, and his other collections include Day Release and Tightrope, and they are both published by the Gallery Press in Ireland. Please.
Okay, well, thank you, Jonathan, Larissa, Mark, for having us on Lit Balm. I have to confess, I've been watching Lit Balm sessions over breakfast on Sunday mornings. I'm sorry, rather than live, and I do so appreciate that facility and enjoy the show. So bravo on your good work to provide this platform. It's also awesome and a real honor to read that poem, the title poem, in Go There, my new book with Tontongi, whom I haven't seen and still haven't in the actual since last fall. I love the political in Tontongi's poetry, how he shies from lyric self-regard, and how, like the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, Tontongi believes that writers cannot live in a vacuum. And regardless of what they might think of the distance their trade affords, they're always in the coup. They're always part of the struggle for life.
Yes.
And and Go There is a poem I came across almost a decade ago while reading Haitian poetry. And I was immediately drawn to its imperative voice, its call to action, and to better practices in global human engagement. And when I was looking around for a title for my book, I wanted to pay homage to the importance of Tontongi's voice, and it's a real honor to make that the title poem of the book. I'm going to read one or two more poems from the book, depending on time, because I want to get out of the way for Mary O'Donoghue, whom I haven't seen, we remember, since a memorial reading for Seamus Heaney at Boston Public Library shortly after he died, which was a while ago, longer than we remember. We did a reading sort of in duet then too of the Kite poem, so it's great to catch up with Mary and finally Dan. We chat somewhere between often and all the time, and he has been his goodness gracious best in writing an introductory essay for my new book. So the poem I'm going to read today is in the book. It's for Tontongi. It's called Indikini. Dikini is in Carrefour in Haiti, which is to Port-au-Prince's Haiti's capital, kind of what Quincy is to Boston. So this is just a sort of a video reel through a hardly a typical landscape in urban Haiti. It's also a love poem, a sort of bouquet homage to the wonderful blossoms of bougainvillea one notices everywhere in Haiti's capital. So much do they burst forth in sprays over the high walls. So this poem is called Indikini. In a passionate, long cambering bid to make it out onto the St. Roch Road and up the mountain, past boys on hunkers outside Baptist and Adventist churches, breaking rubble down to rock and aggregate, past the Miami numbers chalked on slate, past grazing pigs and cocks, past the beatings oil drums get in fair trade art, the bleatings of pay one forward goats, across from Père Éternel Auto Body Parts Works, over the hospital wall, top dressed in cement, and the halves of broken bottles, hell-bent on getting out, unscathed by razor wire snagged on rusted, twisted pegs of rebar, and looking to graft itself from you to me. The Bougainvillea Indicini. Well, all four of us reading today are connected by Boston, and the fourth is coming up, and the firework and orchestral event that would typically take place on the Esplanade is canceled. So I'm going to close by trying out a poem called 4th of July, which half imagines a friendly encounter between two quite different veterans of American wars. There's an epigraph from Frederick Douglass and his famous speech of July 5, 1852. What is the slave in the 4th of July? What to the slave is the 4th of July? And a short 4-word quote again at the end of the poem, a sort of epitaph turned epiphany and outreach gesture of compromise that one of the veterans delivers. So this poem is called 4th of July. If I can just find it on the manuscript, let's go, 72. Bear with me. 4th of July. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me? Frederick Douglass, July 5, 1852. A redneck in a shock of silver hair at the wheel of a dark blue Escalade with front and back vanity license plates for veteran / ex-prisoner of war. Notices one not long back from the war, headed to fireworks on the Esplanade, a bit banged up, a do-rag where the plates do well to keep him pumping in his chair. The elder parts his folding chair alongside his inheritor and waits for the long overture to escalate its fussy pastoral to scores of war, to lean in and shout above the rip roars of cannon on the river. This day is yours. So thank you, folks. This day is yours. Mark, it's over to you, I think, to introduce Mary.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aidan. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Mary. And Mary O'Donoghue is a fiction writer, a translator, a poet, and she's the fiction editor at Agni. Originally from County Clare, she makes her home in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and her living in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Mark and Larissa and Jonathan, whom I'm meeting for the first time. I'm very glad to be part of this evening. I hope my sound is okay.
It's very good.
Okay, thank you for that. And also, it's a shame certainly that Aidan and Daniel and I, we haven't all seen each other in quite that long time, but also how great that we are able to read together in this forum. So I'm very honored to be reading with both of you, and thank you, Eddy and Aidan, for the reading that you've just given us. I'm going to read about 8 to 10 minutes from the beginning of a short story. It's unpublished. I've finished all the tweaking and picking at it, so I think I'm happy today to send it at least a little bit forward to you listeners, who hopefully will become readers of it at some point. All I need to say about the story, so as not to waste any time, is that, well, I picked it to read for today because tomorrow is Father's Day. The speaker in my story is a father. He's also someone who manages lots of money for people who have more money than they have sense. The story is called The Shorter Wars, and it's called The Shorter Wars because later in the story, his daughter, noting that he has started dating again and he has come home early, she tells him, "Dad, there are shorter wars in recorded history than your dates." And she gives him an example. She says, for example, the British Empire versus Zanzibar, 1896. That war lasted 45 minutes. So I'm going to read the first 8 or so minutes of this story, The Shorter Wars. My mother loved to watch couples build or buy houses in far-flung locations. They veered outlandishly near divorce and insolvency because one of them wanted modernist everything, the other only a lawn. My mother grudged how they beat the odds. No roads, no electric, but somehow, from somewhere, money got the job done. "But Peter, here's a thought," she said, when last we watched one of those projects together. "There must be something fundamentally wrong with a person to want to live so remotely. The cliffs of Croatia, that's someone who doesn't want family coming around." I never told her about the investment apartments for Russians. 10th floor, 3,000 square footers, empty and self-contained as beautiful cedar wood boxes. Other people whose money I have steered are high in and dry in Squaw Valley and Vale. They ski the powder and sleep off another year of doing sweet FA. My tech titans check in when pharmaceuticals froth up. Any day now, they expect the cure for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and every last one of the cancers. One of my Miami surgeons calls me her dogged retainer. She floundered a while when nipples got modishly small, she said, but then she adapted and thrived, and now she says what's chic is an aureole the size of a euro. I outsourced the last years of my mother's life to a magnificent complex the colour of calamine lotion, an Italianate courtyard, and a Kindle for everyone. 5 years on, she's still having a wonderful time, and the walls are a classy mint green. She gets sea fish 3 times a week and historical card games like Stop the Bus. One daily cocktail is brought to her lounger. She's in a photo above my desk, a tiny bronze mother by a kidney-shaped pool. She has a smile as wide as a galaxy, in spite of an aching ceramic hip and war with another resident who put his hand down her bikini. "Down, Peter, and around," she said. "Can you believe such a filthy thing?" And still she marvels at all that's good about her station. She thanks me at the end of every call. She asks about Kate less often now. She once used to wonder if Kate might ever visit her. Along a road trip, some bright college friends in tow, many fun plans. She'd love to show off her granddaughter. Now she thinks Kate is just still busy with her studies, maybe even deepened them. I let my mother advance the story as far as she likes. The last time Kate came into the house, she measured my mother between finger and thumb. God, she still takes a good photograph. I can't believe she's, what now, 78, 79? Look at her. Granny, matinee idol. That was a year ago, when Kate still used the house to do laundry and make big jars of yogurt to bring back to the settlement. She condemned my workflow system. Dad, come on. Does it have to look as ugly as that? She trailed her hand past the screen. She hated the signs and systems of capital, so why should the color scheme be any different? My second screen, though, had bare cam. That she could deal with, just about. I streamed the polar bears. Waiting for sea ice, They walked like invalids. They wore baggy, dirty fur like cast-offs from bigger creatures. When ice didn't form, they didn't eat. The brown bears of Alaska were asleep for the winter, but offered captivating highlights of their year. I moved a chunk of someone's retirement into robotics, and we watched a bear wait for a salmon at the top of a waterfall. Stately instinct, open maw. So many fish leaped mightily against the odds, teeming and probably up in the steaming air. Surely there weren't many remaining things that worked so hard for so few odds. Kate had been one of those kids forever saving imperiled creatures. Near extinctions, poisoned waters, forests being felled. Back when the outlook wasn't so dire, kids were always raising money. Kate scared up the streets for awareness and pledges to care. Seal clubbing, dogs injected with MS, you name it. She had an officious little clipboard of literature and imagery. She had stumps where shark fins were severed. She had shorebirds smothered in oil. I asked if she remembered how hard-nosed she'd been, neighbors' faces peeling back in confusion, then distress, like this little girl had shown them an indelibly pornographic image, and then their panic to find some cash. And what did it matter, said Kate, when you look at the state of things now? We lost that war, she said. The animals are enslaved, or eaten, or dead. She put her grandmother back on the shelf to signal the visit was done. She left by the back door, walked down the darkening garden, passed through the gate. I watched from the office. The scrubland would swallow her for a while. Then she worked through fencing and into the housing development that never got finished. She lived there, in a pup tent, in a ghost kitchen. Other tents were pitched in other rooms, friends of hers and strangers. I see their little lights by night, pricking across the dark bushes and rushes and overgrowth. Tea light candles, clip lights for reading. I've bought them all for her, and batteries, and glow sticks, and miner's lamps. On one delivery, I was asked to wait a bit. Then we sat on shallow steps outside Kate's back door. I'm closing little doors in myself, she said, into my shoulder. The way cleaners shut off the lights in office blocks. Do you remember how I thought that was so lovely in Boston? I told her yes. Lights going out along the glass floors, a building like a big blue blade. We'd never seen the building quenched, though. Random windows were always illuminated. You're thinking of stairwells, Dad. They don't count. She was wrong about the stairwells, but she brushed gravel from her bare feet and bade me a brusque good night. I wanted to hear her turn the lock, but there was no such snap. From the kitchen window in grim weather, her settlement is a floating island, sometimes visible, most often not. To the settlement, this house and 9 others in the crescent must look like a contented peninsula. The railway line runs between, crossing the sea of rough land. Night trains ache more when there's rain. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, Mary.
Thank you very much. And
when can we expect a collection or a novel?
Well, I'm trying to remember what Jonathan said. Forgive me if I'm wrong about this a little bit, but something that you said earlier in the gathering about not being. Did you say not prolific?
I'm not very prolific, no.
Okay, there's something like that. And I was thinking about this today as well because I've had this story written for quite a while, but I've only finished editing it, so I am on the slow. But also maybe somewhat steady trail. I've finished a manuscript of a short story collection, and I have started into writing my second novel, and I hope to get good part into that. So, but as for when they will appear in the world, you know, I don't know. And I cannot blame a pandemic. That is not an excuse for slowing down publication. But I would hope maybe in the next, I don't know, year or two, something will be born out there.
Sounds nice.
And
And
thanks for
also,
hosting me. Yeah.
also, you know, Mad Hat Press will be happy to look at whatever you've got as well at any time.
Well, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
And since this is recorded, then I can hold you to that. That's very generous. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks a lot. But I think I'm handing over to Daniel Tobin now. That would be
We
right.
are, and
Yeah.
I'm just about to introduce the fellow.
I want to say one
Sure.
thing before you
Sure.
introduce him, because he did, and some people talked about his beard at the start of the evening, and I think I should add George Moore to that, Daniel.
George Moore, yeah.
Yeah, I think you want
more
that.
or less.
And here we have Daniel Tobin, an old friend and the author of 9 books of poems, including From Nothing, winner of the Julia Ward Howe Prize, The Stone in the Air, his versions from the German of Paul Celan, and Blood Labors, named the Best Poetry Book of the Year by the New York Times and the Washington Independent Review of Books for 2018. He is also the author of the critical works Passage to the Center, Awake in America, and most recently on Serious Earth. His poetry has won the Discovery Nation Award, the Penn Warren Award, the Frost Fellowship, the Bakeless Prize, the Merengoff Award, the Massachusetts Book Award, and fellowships from the NEA and Guggenheim Foundation, among other honors. Welcome so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Mark and Larissa and Jonathan. And it's wonderful that you're hosting this event. More than this event, but a whole series of events that are working out really well. We need a venue like that at this time, don't we? And Eddy and Aidan and Mary, it's just wonderful to be on the same virtual stage with you. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first is from the book, The Net. And some of you will recognize the form of the poem. It's a ghazal, which is an Arabic form. It's called Late Bloomer. Something whispered I wanted more of myself. That's how I turned into the fleur of myself. The lake, the ripples shimmer, that lilting face. I'll guzzle the infinite core of myself. What is this flow I feel its course through soft bone? The current, the mother lode, the ore of myself. Fill me with all things, empty me completely. I winnow and still am the store of myself. Imagine Earth, the stars, all space expanding and finding everywhere the core of myself. If soul's estate means a mansion's many rooms, then someday I will take a tour of myself. Do you think me insane, my hypocrite twin, a catatonic stare, the whore of myself? Call me this, call me that, call me what you will. I surpass beyond words the lore of myself. Time blooms with space, and there sums all I am. I am forever the before of myself. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty, beauty is truth. X to nth power is the shore of myself. Narcissus, the name a wind passing through wind. Now watch me step through the door of myself. In ghazals, the last couplet has to be signed off with the name of the author. In that case, it's Narcissus and not me. Maybe I'm narcissistic, perhaps. This is called Corpse Flower Luna Moth. It's from Blood Labors. The deep wine of it risen tall above the buried corm. Its ornamental spathe furrow thoughtfully to human warmth. O unbranched inflorescence, amorphophallus, misshapen swelling, with its allure of rotting flesh for the scarabs to follow, hollow to the sunlit trove, as though all dark were light unbidden by our parsing eye, and love itself hidden inside the word. Call it life enwrapped with death's blight, blooming briefly. Emergent morning. In the sweet gum triggering green, green its wings fanning translucent below the porch light, angelic, a palm of light opening. Haloed, hatched each instar inches under cover, a spent thing, climbing, larval, alluvial, out of every cycle's shelf life, its rife unknowing, to become this end, brief birth flying, flown, thrown at midnight into beginning. Mouthless, it appears something bidden out of the dark, out of the broadleaf unmoving, to say something wordlessly, the word we too can neither speak nor sing. The last poem I'm going to read is a little bit longer. It's the last poem in Blood Labors, and it's really dedicated to one of my great teachers at the University of Virginia, Nathan A. Scott Jr., who died about 14 years ago, so it's kind of an elegy too. It really is a memorial to him. Invented the whole field of religion and literature, an extraordinary person. He had a little quirk when he gave a lecture, which was, if he wanted to extend the idea, he would always say, "That is to say," and then he would go on in this brilliant, rendition of something he was saying. So the title of the poem is "That is to say," and it incorporates some of his verbal idiosyncrasies into the poem. And it takes place, or it rehearses the place of the University of Virginia where he taught, at least at the beginning. That is to say, for Nathan Scott. Fall, and the terraced ascensions of this lawn buzz with the callow treasons of its clerks, and along the colonnade the sun makes a gnomon of each column and brick, where light waves congregate astride their opposite on every wire edge of shade. From above, the rotunda's unblinking eye looks up, looks back, as though from where it came, some archetype or figure, and not a built thing imagined into presence by faulty human genius on the backs of slaves. A wound that would nurse its cure. From higher still, let's say a satellite map, with every turning threshold of range and scope, the center grows centerless, an assemblage of dreamy anonymity, strangely depthless, a flat and fracturing collage of small lives moving en masse, like passing circus across a motherboard, no matter their ambitions or pains, no matter but matter animated by what you called the frailest fragments of adjustment. Our idea of the world, a frontier in extremis, derelict, desolate, which is to say, as you would say, what you saw as a fall and a forgetting, a banal eclipse that leaves us in the meantime, an erased horizon, an earth unchained from its sun. What good then, apropos of nothing, to savor the fine meal, the martini, the chatty communion of friends at home, the calling of others to learn otherwise? I only want you to see, the great saint wrote, which was the creed you lived by and what you taught, a way of making poetry, a way of letting be, until the part could somehow cicatrize the whole, the cheap synecdoche, like an empty sequined glove, become a bright beholding. As in Bearden's The Return of the Prodigal Son, where the one who's come back looks stanched in gauze, humbled, raw, his enfolding waiting in the advent of those who greet him, themselves radiantly particulate with scraps, bits, surfaces the artist improvised on his kaleidoscopic frame, where the one who's escaped the styes, stench, and mire turns outward from the faces of those who will embrace him, of those he will embrace, toward us as toward a lens, his chest shining with its breastplate of shook foil, the cast-off bottle that bound him secured in rope, his two horizons behind, the ashen and the risen, and that candle at the fulcrum, under the figure's wide iconic eye, burning as in a tabernacle. So you would have us see each such meeting together as a ritual of color, depth of field, the promise of an imminent all in all that flashes instantly in every instant's shutter. That is to say, as you would say, everything is threshold, and is so by being providently on the way, itself and not another thing, and so the advent of a coming home. It is the slug's slim prayer that teaches how to pray, riding its losses across a patch of ground. To one believes with each leaving in the kinship of things that do not look akin, the circle squared in a turn of the scope. That is to say, we are gathered wherever we go by way of love, and nothing will be forsaken.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Nothing will be forsaken for sure. And now we move on to the next section of the show, and I'm going to hand it over to Larissa Schmeilo. If anyone has any questions at this time, feel free to shout out. We'll give you about 3 seconds to raise your hand.
Okay, good enough. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. And I just want to shout out and thank Daniel Tobin, Eddy Toussaint Tontongi, Aidan Rooney, and Mary O'Donoghue for a superb and splendid reading. Thank you, guys. Let's give them another hand, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. That was excellent. That was truly uplifting. Everything is threshold and nothing will be forsaken. I love it. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. I want to thank our technical director, Amanda Roberts, for her work today. A shout out to Amanda, who keeps us safe and who does the screens and all this other work for us. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. And before we go to the open mic, where we have some spectacular, wonderful readers for you, I want to tell you about upcoming shows. On June 27th, we have Nicole Cooley, Vincent A. Salucci, Christopher Shipman, and more away. And on July 4, a very, very special event. It's the Founders Reading. Mark and Jonathan and I will be reading, and our special guests are John Yo, Elaine Equi, and Jerome Sala. So please join us for these wonderful upcoming shows. And we just want to pause a minute and tell you that that Lit Balm knows Black Lives Matter, and we think everybody should know that. Just know that in their bones. Black Lives Matter. It's time, don't you think? It's time. It's way past time. Hello. Black Lives Matter. We know that. We know that here. So anyway, moving right along. I want to open the open mic up, and I'd like to first bring to the mic someone who has featured for us very generously. I would like to bring in the wonderful poet Indran Amirthanayagan. Indran, are you ready? Indran, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very
Hello,
much.
Indran, good to see you again.
Again, likewise. I've been enjoying Lit Balm almost every week. It's been a real balm in my day-to-day and my week, something to look forward to. I'll read a poem from my new book, The Migrant States, and in honor of Haiti, and it's a poem that comes from Haiti. I wrote it in Creole, but I'll read the English version, which appears in the book. It's called The Avocado Season is Over. The season of avocados is over. The most beautiful girl in town is about to marry a man across the water. My brother is busy with his manuscript. Time to share ideas in a book has gone to the country without a hat. Accept reality. Don't live anymore in fantasy. You are getting along in years, but have only spoken Creole for 2. You have a great long life ahead. Think, reflect, tell all the new families congratulations, good luck, then write again about your life in Haiti when the avocado was in bloom. That's the avocado season is over.
That's
Don't
wonderful.
forget the fini. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was from the Migrant States.
Thank you, Edwin. Fantastic poem.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's beautiful. Thank you very much. We have next Maria Teresa Grieco, who has written a poem for us, I believe. Maria, will you share your poem for us?
Okay, sure. Hi, Melissa. How you doing?
How are you? How are you, Maria? Let's hear the poem you wrote.
Okay, yes, I've been writing several. Maybe later I'll tell you why. And they're gonna do. I was gonna do some more tweaking yesterday, but it didn't quite happen. But anyway, keeping the faith. Keeping the faith is hard to do these days. Faith is challenged constantly in so many ways. Loss of jobs, loss of money, loss of contact with anybody. Most difficult of all, loss of those we love to this virus all around us, below and above. Some people are tested more than most. A fortunate few enjoy luxury and boast. Sorrow, fear, envy exist. Expressing anger is hard to resist. But we must have faith that somehow, some way, we will find a path to a safer new day.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for sharing with us. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And thanks for writing a poem for us. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right.
So, go on. Did you? I think the next is that person here?
Who is that?
The next person up.
Bertha Rogers.
Bertha's here.
Bertha, my friend.
I'm here. Okay, I'm going to read a poem. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and this is a poem about my father. Gleaning, following the flatbed wagon, foraging for corn missed by the picking machine, we must have looked like figures in a Bruegel painting, our stooping shapes processing, dismal and brown, among remnant stalks frozen in rigid furrows. Only your tractor was out of time. We tossed the stiff yellow ears to the rattling wagon, shielding our faces as we straightened. We were cold and complained of it. Every November, I bury you, Father, once more. Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful poet Bertha. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your presence
Thank
here.
you.
Lastly, I don't know if she's here or not, is Marion Shore here?
That's my son. And I just have no idea how to change this. It's his computer, and I have no idea how to change it to my name. But I'm Marion Shore. So, hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to see you all. And it's very, very hot and humid here in Rhode Island. I don't know how you guys are doing, but one thing I really, really miss is the beach. They've opened up the beaches, but I still feel from what I hear, it's not that safe to go. So we just go and we sort of sit out on pavilions and look with longing. And it's very crowded and people are not wearing masks, so I don't go. But God, do I want to jump in that water, and I miss the beach. And the poem I'm going to read is about, it's called Sandcastle, and it's from my book by that name. And it's not only, you know, kind of in praise or looking back on being able to go to the beach. It's kind of looking back on this earlier innocent era when I took my two sons to the beach and we were building a sandcastle. So I thought, you know, something that's kind of just before what's going on now, and just looking back nostalgically at what seemed like where you took going to the beach with your kids for granted. So Sandcastle. We built a castle, my 2 young sons and I, dug the ditch and threw the ramparts up, made walls and bridges and towers rising high, fashioned with pail and shovel and ice cream cup. And when they understood its fate, they cried. And I tried to comfort them as parents will, speaking of shared remembrance, the rhythmic tide, the shining beauty of things ephemeral. We stood to watch the seaweed pennants dance. Then, when we had packed up everything, we left the beach with many a backward glance. Late that night, while both my children slept, I thought about our castle foundering beneath the cold, uncaring waves and wept.
Thank you so very much, Marion. The beauty of things ephemeral, as we all are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that comes to the end of our show. But before we close, we want to do a few plugs. Jonathan, did you want to plug Annie Pluto's launch party?
Sure, yeah. Anne Elizabeth Pluto will be releasing her book, The Deepest Part of Dark, on July 1st. And we'll be having a book release party with Anne Elizabeth Pluto, Tara Campbell of Barrel House, and Kyla Rodney of Unlikely Books. It's an Unlikely Books event, and if you search Unlikely Books, you'll be able to find the Zoom room or the Facebook Live, and we'd love to see you there.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Mark, would you like to tell us again about the Harry Crosby event?
Yes, absolutely. Monday, 5 p.m., the Harry Crosby Selected Poems launch. As said, Charles Bernstein has made a movie. Ruth Lepson will be there, Fanny Howe, Jim Dunn, Marjorie Perloff, Jerome Rothenberg, Ron Silliman, Sally Connolly, and yours truly. And this is the first book of Harry Crosby's that has come out of his creative work since 1931. So join us, and hope you'll be astounded. Thanks so much for tonight, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in the spirit of plugs, I'd like to tell you that I will be reading for the Harriman Institute of Columbia University. I'm going to be reading this Thursday at 3 o'clock. It's a free webinar. Google it, I guess that's the best way of finding it. For the Harriman Institute at Columbia University, a virtual event, Thursday, 3 o'clock. I will be reading my translations of the brilliant Russian poet Maria Galina. So that's great. All right, any last words, gentlemen?
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Black Lives Matter, and that's the end of our show. Come back next week for Nicole Cooley, Vincent H. Salucci, Christopher Shipman, and Maura Way. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.